Should be good. Okay, let's roll. Hey, Hustle Island community. I'm here today with a friend of mine, Akshay Nanavati. Is that how to say it?
Yep, perfect, man.
All right, and we just talked a little bit. Akshay is written Fearvana, which is a best-selling book. It actually has a testimonial from the Dalai Lama, which is precisely what caught my attention. And he bought a hustle shirt. He came into the community. He reached out, and I read the book, and I asked him to jump on a podcast interview to help out Hustle Island and talk about his book and more importantly, what's really going on in his life. So actually, thanks for joining.
Nice for having me, brother. Great to be here.
All right. So I got an email. We're going to start right off the jump. I got an email from Akshay, who has a large community of his own, and it was about a Demi Lovato recently overdosing and celebrities committing suicide, overdosing, and the point he made in the email was that the professional, what would you call it, self-help industry, the professionals, the doctors, are going about it wrong. What do you mean by that?
So I've personally experienced it to add that kind of context and why I feel like they're going about it wrong is one, we're seeing depression rates rise, suicide rates rise, addiction rates rise consistently across the globe. I mean, as we speak, I'm in India. India has the highest student suicide rate in the world. We're seeing it rise here. We're seeing it rise in the US and fairly consistently across the globe, obesity, in every context you look at our well-being, right? So the numbers speak for themselves. Now, personally, my little story, but just my story, but just to give a little bit of background for anybody listening, I went through drug addiction in high school, lost 2 friends to drugs, was heavily, that could have easily been me, was heavily immersed in that pretty dark world, got out, joined the Marines, spent 6 years in the Marines. I did 1 tour in Iraq. Coming back from Iraq, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, struggled with depression, struggled with alcoholism. I got to a point that I would drink like a liter of vodka a day. I would wake up, drink till I pass out, and then drink again until, when I'm up, and just do that for days on end. Obviously, that was pretty bad and put me in a dark space till eventually I got to the point that I thought about taking my own life. And so I went to therapists with the VA, and I just realized, often when I would leave the therapy office, I would go straight to drink again, So finally, when I hit that point that I considered taking my own life, that really shocked me. So that's when I started my own research and looking at neuroscience, psychology, spirituality to figure out how to heal my own brain. And that's what led me to this concept of Fearvana and how to ultimately help everybody navigate fear, navigate stress, navigate suffering in a way that's far more healthy. Because most of the people I've seen out there, I think that they have good intentions, like the therapist I worked with in the VA, good people wanted to help, but I think they're operating from a very bad playbook. That's not helpful. So I'll give you a small example of that. We often demonize emotions like fear, like stress, like guilt. Like when I went when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, they would ask me questions like, do you get jumpy when there's loud noises? I said, yes, I do. That was like a checkbox to say, okay, that's a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. Other ones were like, do you like crowds? No, I didn't. I struggled with being in crowds. Did I feel survivor's guilt? Yes, I did. I lost a friend in the war. I lost a junior Marine to suicide, one of my Marines when we came back from the war. And I felt all these things, and these were all symptoms that they said, okay, now you have post-traumatic stress disorder. But what I came to learn through all my research is that the symptoms of post-traumatic stress are not indicative of a disorder. Like when you come back from a war, it's very normal to be jumpy with loud noises. It's very normal to not like crowds because your brain has learned to say these things equal death. Inevitably, you're more vigilant. But what happens is when we over-label this disorder, then it fuels into this downward spiral of negative self-talk that there's something wrong with me. And then every time something happens, I believe there's something wrong with me, and that belief will fuel my habit patterns mentally and physically. So what I learned to do is channel all of this in a useful way. And I've helped a lot of veterans do the same thing. So for me now, my survivor's guilt has become my ally. I haven't lost it. I still feel it when I think about my friend, and we'll talk more as we kind of go into it about how do you tangibly navigate these emotions when you're in the space. I'll definitely share because like we were just talking about, I still feel all this stuff. But like I have a poster of my friend that says, this should have been you. Earn this life. That poster helped me finish my book and helped me sober up because my guilt became my ally, And like I've seen with veteran friends I've spoken to, like one veteran buddy of mine went to a therapist, and the therapist kept saying, anger is a choice. You need to stop being angry. And he kept struggling with it. Like, if anger is a choice, why can't I stop? And he had this huge anger problem after the war. 7 years after the war, the first time when we worked together, he was able to control his anger because I told him that anger is not a choice. Right now for you, neuroscience and spirituality have both shown we don't control what first shows up in our brain. It's a pattern that's no longer in our control. So if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and I feel fear, it's normal to feel fear. The problem is not feeling that fear. It's what I do with it once it shows up. So I helped him accept the anger, to be with it, to be present to it without trying to get rid of it or eliminate it. And simply by doing that, he was able to let the anger subside without letting it consume him in his actions. So those are things that I learned that I think we're generally approaching it wrong, and why we need to really practice being okay with the entire spectrum of the human experience, the human emotions, because there are no bad or good emotions. There are no bad or good experiences. It's what we do with it that matters. Everything can be useful if we channel it that way.
Yeah, that's spot on. I love it. And I did not go to war. And coming from an entrepreneurial perspective, and
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff you said comes up in, the people that I talk to, which is obviously a different facet of the world, which is entrepreneurs, business owners, people trying to achieve success.
Yeah.
And you're right. These emotions pop up in saying, well, you have anger, you're an angry person. We all have anger. We all have all of this stuff in the whole spectrum. And I agree.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you could really control is your attitude. So how can you harness this fear or this anger, step back and turn it to an ally, which you mentioned before? And how could, speaking a little bit to my market,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's very fearful to have your friends look at you funny, or to take that first step. I have friends right now that can't take the first step out of their job because they have this house and they have this dogma that was given to them. How do they take that fear and propel themselves?
Yeah, no, love it. So great question. And yeah, I can totally resonate. As you know, now I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I had a friend I worked with actually who told me once that I'm just waiting for the fear to go away so I can quit my job to start my business. And I said, that's your problem. You're waiting for the fear to go away. Because again, coming back, like with the world, often many experts tell us, you will hear things like we should be fearless. Eliminate your fears. And some of the leading experts say this. I mean, I don't want to name names, but I'm sure you've seen it out there. It frustrates me because these are people who are very high up in this industry, but they'll say things like be fearless. And the problem is when it says that, then people like my friend, beat themselves up for feeling fear because they think there's something wrong with them for feeling fear. So they try to eliminate it. So the first thing is whatever shows up, be okay with it. Like this is not some magic hack or a silver bullet kind of thing. It's literally just pausing and being okay with it. You're scared to quit your job to start a business. That is a natural and an okay fear to have, It's not something crazy. You don't have to be fearless. So the next thing is to process the fear. Like isolate yourself from the experience of that fear to understand it. So for example, when I was writing my book on fear, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified of writing a garbage book, even though I'm like the Fearvana guy, right? So sometimes people are surprised when I say that. But the thing is, I was terrified of writing a bad book, of like a book that people would, not want to read, that you'd get that 1-star review on Amazon, nobody likes to see. So because I was terrified, I studied how to write a better book. So my fear helped me write a better book. So what you do is you understand the fear, you accept it, you isolate yourself from it. So what am I afraid of? Why am I afraid? What's the worst case scenario? How do I prepare for that worst case scenario? So I'm scared to quit my job to start my business. What's the worst case scenario? How do I prepare for that? So you're really allowing that fear to be channeled into conscious action. So because I was scared of writing a bad book, I studied from authors like Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul author, most popular nonfiction series of all time, Tim Ferriss, authors who have done this right. I studied how to write a good book as well as how to market it. And as a result, I must have trashed about 100,000 words worth of work. That's months and months worth of work. But it led to something, you read it, that now I'm truly proud of. It got endorsed by the Dalai Lama, I'm blessed to say, and by many other people like Seth Godin, Jack Canfield, Keith Ferrazzi, many people. And I'm not saying that like I'm special. It's saying that because I was scared, it allowed me to write a book that warranted that. You know what I mean? If I wasn't scared, it wouldn't have been, I would have put garbage out there. I wouldn't have given a shit, just put something out there. But because I was scared, I channeled it into the work. So you isolate yourself from the fear. You embrace that energy of that fear. You really visualize what's on the other side of it. What's the reward? What are the consequences? Because like there's the fear of writing a book, a bad book, and then there's the fear of dying and never having shared your message. So it's kind of being present to the constant fears of, and let the fears drive you. So when I procrastinated. One thing was obviously the research that went to it. One thing was, like you said, rewriting it, the edits, but there was some procrastination from time to time without a doubt, but staying present to that fear that if I die without having shared this message, that letting that fear drive me to put in the work. And often when you take that first step, the action will start flowing. I feel that regularly, even on my training runs, man. Like when I know I have to do a long run, I'm terrified because I know I'll go through some suffering, and I do it all the time, but it's, you step out the door and then you get in flow, right? So visualization is good technique, isolating yourself from the fear, embracing the energy of that fear, channeling it into the rewards. And a great tool also is looking at how you can serve people. Neuroscience has actually shown that when you approach your goals in the context of service, it can help release oxytocin in the brain, which it doesn't eliminate the presence of fear, but it allows you to rise above that fear and channel it into purposeful action. You mentioned you just finished Fearvana. I talk about that in the last chapter of the book, the love, faith, and fear element, on how love isn't like, fear is not the enemy of love as it's often perceived. It's an expression of love. Like, I loved my message. That's why I was scared of writing a bad book. You know what I mean? And I feel that all the time. So those are some tangible techniques and to embrace the energy of your emotion.
Yeah, that's spot on. And again, I go through the same thing. And as you're speaking, I'm just connecting to every single thing. So basically, you are labeling your fear. You're saying, okay, this is, I'm fear of this. I'm very fearful that I might die without getting this out. So I have to do it. And a lot of, so you said I was scared to write a bad book. So in business, you're scared to put out a bad product. But again, you have to put out a product. You have to start. And then on the opposite side of that is, they say that the smart people understand that they have flaws, and the people that just go at it and don't have fear per se, just go out and put out a trash book. What's the balance? So I'm scared to start a business that doesn't work, but then again, I have to start now. I have to start. What's the first step out the door? What's the trick not the trick, but how do you put the running shoes next to the door?
No, great question. You know, it's this balance of action and awareness. I call it the action awareness cycle. So sometimes you need to act, and you're going to learn from actions. You'll gain new awareness and take action. But now, let's say in the context of something you mentioned earlier, let's say you have a family, you have to provide for. Jumping into like quitting your job overnight might not be the smartest idea, because all of a sudden now there's no income. You got a family to take care of, you got kids to put to school. So that's the time you want to exercise awareness. Like, I didn't have that. I don't have kids, no longer married. So it's easier to take certain risks in the context varies. So do you exercise the awareness first or the action first? It depends. Like, for example, on something like skydiving, I might be terrified, but that thing, you really can't think too much into it. It's simple. You got to jump out of the plane. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you jump, you take the leap. In the context, like, if you have a family, you want to exercise some awareness, take some time to study, build a business on the side. And ultimately there's a point where you're going to take a leap, and there's no one right way to do it. It's really a relentless practice of action with awareness and embracing the cycle of that experience. With every action, there's new awareness, but you have to be conscious about taking in that awareness to then take new action. Right? Like, sometimes we're just running around doing activity, like running around with our chickens had a head cut off, and not like gaining the awareness from an action to learn and to use that action in order to grow. So if I'm putting out a bad product or putting out a bad, anything in your business, you put it out there, you make some mistakes. Inevitably, you're going to make mistakes when you're running a business, and you learn from it. But that means taking in the awareness to learn. So there's that sort of that pause, that stillness, but like a big thing you mentioned, that labeling the emotion when you're in it, when you're feeling it. In the book, I talk about that LMNOP tool. So I can run through that really quick, because that's a really useful tool for me and for people I've shared it with, that I've worked with. So LMNOP tool is a great tool to embrace the energy of your emotion into purposeful action. So L is label the emotion. You're pausing and labeling it. And neuroscience has shown what that does is it reduces activity in the emotional parts of your brain and increases activity in the part of your brain that's related to focus and awareness. So you're essentially rising above the emotion by labeling it. Then the second part of the L is your body language. You change your language. You kind of sit up in a more confident posture, to feel more confident, to act like that you're this warrior, to feel it just in your body language, and it changes the dynamic within. The M is the meaning. What is the meaning that you have created to the experience causing the emotion and to the emotion itself? So there's a meaning to the experience, but often there's a meaning to the emotion itself. So what happens many times is when we feel fear, we think of ourselves as weak for feeling that fear. So what you're doing right now is just pausing to notice what is the meaning that I'm having to this emotion and to the event. The N, LMN, N is the kind of the key part here. It's not when you're saying it's not me, it's my brain. In this part, you're separating yourself from the emotion and your identity associated with it. Because what happens is we often define ourselves by our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings. Like I've worked with people when one kid I was working with went to the therapist. The therapist said she had depression. And I think it was awful for her, the therapist, to do that, because now what happened is the person believed she had depression. The person believed that every time something happened in life, it's because I am depressed. Depression became a part of her self-identity, as opposed to saying something like, you know what, my brain goes through a state of depression from time to time, but I am not my brain, and my brain is not me. So you're separating yourself from the feeling. The O is you opt for a new meaning. This is when you say things like, you're opting for a new meaning to the event and or the emotion. So in the case of my book, for example, the new meaning was that I'm scared because I want to write a bad book. Because I want to put a good book out there, right? Because I don't want to write a bad book. So that suddenly my fear became my ally, that, it's a sign of my love for my message and for the people I want to serve. So you're opting for a new meaning to the event and to the emotion itself. So I'm saying my fear is not a bad thing. It's just an expression of my love, And then why am I scared of the book? Like, that's the event. It's because, then I studied about writing how to write a good book. So that's the O. And finally, the P, purpose and preemptive strikes. This is when you take some action in line with that purpose that you want to achieve. And it can even be something as small as like sitting on the computer to write for 5 minutes. I worked with one client who was struggling with anxiety, went through this step-by-step process. And the end result was, because often what his brain had created a pattern that sit on the computer, feel anxiety, run away, go watch TV. TV, you numb out the mind. So what we did was we did this step-by-step process. And initially it was just sitting on the computer to write for 5 minutes, even if nothing comes out. But what you're doing is you're building new wiring, literally new neuronal wiring in your brain and creating new habits. So you do something small to change your pattern. And the second part of the P is preemptive strikes. This is kind of what you're talking about, that putting on the running shoes, where you preemptively prepare for obstacles will show up. So, for example, when I did this once, I had 2 client calls in the morning, but I didn't sleep much the night before, and I was going to go out for a run after. I knew I would be fatigued and want to take a nap, and I had the luxury to do so because I work from home, right? So it's easy to just retreat and go to sleep. So what I did was I did my client calls with my running shoes, with my iPod around my arm, my running watch, stayed as ready as possible, so that when the client calls finished, I made it as psychologically easy as possible to step out the door. So I preemptively prepared for obstacles that I knew that would show up. And research has shown when you do that, if you write down in detail what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, like preemptively preparing, people who have gone through hip and knee replacement surgery, they recover 3 times faster than those who did not sort of preemptively prepare for the pain of that surgery, of their recovery process. So preemptively preparing for allows you to take purposeful action. And then you kind of go through again that cycle. It's, the elemental piece cycle, because you're going to feel it again. That. You feel it I feel it constantly. Like even to this day, I feel survivor's guilt. I feel my anxiety. And a great way to deal with that too, when you're feeling it, actually another sort of technique that I've really only recently started to embrace further, is to delve deeper into it. This sounds a little crazy, but sometimes I wake up and I feel anxiety. And what I do is I'll put on a scene from a war movie. Tears me up. Every time I do, it tears me up. And I delve deeper into the pain. Till that the pain then subsides. It's this unique thing that I've discovered, that I used to watch war movies and run away and then drink. Today, war movies trigger me in a powerful way to experience the intensity of the emotion even further. Because again, we're always trying to run away from an emotion we think is painful. But if we delve deeper into it, it's like if I feel joy, how do I feel more joy? And do the same exact thing with the so-called negative emotions. If I'm feeling anxiety, delve deeper into it. And by doing so, you enter a sort of state of that calm and then equilibrium as you delve deeper into it. And that's been something very powerful I've been discovering recently.
That is, that's definitely a different level. I could see that. And I think that, so basically what you're saying is your brain is always playing tricks, always doing its own thing. You can't stop it. What you can do is give it space, think about what's happening, and then try to kind of lead it in the direction you want it to go, which is the preemptive strike, which is the posture, which is, okay, I'm going to play the game as well, and I'm going to stack the deck in my favor rather than letting it just drive me. I really like that last point you made, which is dive into it. And I'm trying to think about how I could kind of drive that to my market and myself, which is, I still deal with it. If I get, stupid comments on Instagram, I get really sad. It's inevitable, which I guess is obviously nothing to do with the comment of Instagram. It's almost like the imposter syndrome of, oh shit, am I really not who I say I am?
Hmm.
How would you dive into that? And okay, so I get it, and then I just want to shut the app and go. I don't want to look
Yeah.
at it again. What would you give me personally advice
Yeah.
for?
Yeah, I mean, one thing about the social media thing, like social media thing is obviously we all know, like very can be very negative to that to all of that, right? Dude, I mean, shit, I still have it when I see somebody doing something on social media, it affects it. Like I'll have my notice it affecting my own self identity. So one thing is you want to also be present to the external stimuli you're putting in your brain. Like the reality is, I'm not saying social media is all negative. It had some pros, but if I had to weigh the pros versus the cons, in my opinion, there's far more cons than pros. It'll for generally for most people, So you want to be present to the contextual stimuli you're allowing to enter into your brain. So you, as much as possible, share what you have to for your business to serve people, and then get off it. Like I'm being much more present to that myself. If I get a comment, I'll reply, but like I'm not looking. I don't give a shit about how many likes I get and all that, because that can be a deep little a negative cycle to get into that. So that's one thing. But the second is, yeah, okay, if you notice that feeling of imposter syndrome, like I get it. To this day, I get it. Like I've had the Dalai Lama, and I'm not trying to say this back to endorse my book, and I'm still like, Fearvana is going to go nowhere. We're going to crash and crumble. Like nobody's going to buy the book. Like delve deeper into it. Like go all out into how it might collapse, your empire, and just notice what shows up. Like it's just literally being present to that's literally what I'll do. Okay, yeah, nobody will buy, this whole thing will collapse, and it almost becomes comical as you do that. You know what I mean? Because it starts to become comical, and and as I do that, I notice that like that what I'm saying is not real. It's a thought pattern, but by delving deeper into it, it's like, again, it starts to become comical because you realize how absurd it is, and your mind is this crazy thing that can take you to crazy places, as I'm sure anybody knows. So when you delve deeper into it and you kind of make it into a comical level, it allows yourself to remove the intensity of that experience. In this case, for me and my survivor's guilt, the intensity is a value, but that's a little different scenario. But in this case, like it makes it a little humorous, it makes it light, and then you recognize that it's not real. It's a feeling I got. It's a feeling that's okay to have. Like I'm not going to judge the feeling for it to showing up, because again, the big problem is judging the feeling, judging the thoughts. Let feelings show up as they do. And then you get to just that. Then with that, you can channel it. Okay, all I got to do is let me channel all this. This is where I'm afraid it's all going to crumble. What's the next immediate step? So that's always having that clarity about the mission. So I have like my 2-year goals lined up, broken down into 90-day targets, into 1-month targets, into 1-week targets. So having clarity of purpose also gives you that specific step to take in the context of that purposeful action. So you want to have clarity of purpose. So that way that gives that craziness of the emotion something to channel it into. But that's what I would do is, yeah, like notice yourself feeling it. You can do it while you're running, man. I know you mentioned that earlier. Well, that's a big one for me. I'm a huge runner, obviously. So as we mentioned, so like I will run without an iPod a lot these days. So I don't hear music. I just allow myself to delve deeper into the thoughts. And as I'm doing that, it kind of subsides, So a big thing also in this is that you don't want to look for the natural state of the brain is chaos. So you got to embrace that state of the brain. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, he wrote this amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says that, we often think mental well-being is a state of equilibrium. It's a state of homeostasis, but it's not. There's always going to be a tension. There's going to be a tension between where we are now and where we want to be. We are creatures who are going to have a future, a past, and a present. And balancing these time perspectives, because often, again, with the personal development world, we'll say live entirely in the now. And that's not true. Like we don't want to always live entirely in the now. It's the perspective of having a future that allows us to strive toward that future. There are moments when it's valuable to be fully present in the now, but that's not something to be constantly strive for. Otherwise we'd be sort of like animals, just fully is and present without, the consciousness of a future and a past. So it's like balancing this dynamic play of the 3 time perspectives, past, present, future, and knowing when to activate each. So if you're feeling this anxiety for the future, be present to it. And then you can channel that into the now of the purposeful action, into the one step. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because I struggle because the future is not real and the past is not real. And as you said, if you just focus on now, we go to the movies and fuck it, let the
Right.
pile up. And
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And that's,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's an important part of it too. So it's all important is what you said, is there's a time and a place to focus on everything. And what I'm gathering is that you just have to say it is what it is. My mind is playing tricks. There's nobody on earth that has it figured out. And when I hear you talking, I'm like, oh, this guy has it all figured out. What the fuck? I'm like, so far behind. And then that's just my mind trying to get me out of the situation that's awkward for me. You know, this is my first interview. So I'm like, I got to get out of here. And my mind is playing tricks as we're speaking, and
Yeah.
the feedback I need. I like those points. I think that you definitely have obviously spent a long time thinking about this. And it's a huge thing. And prior to this going live, we spoke about your Fearvana Academy. And you were saying that it's not science and math, which is obviously useful and it's needed. But this stuff, do you think that it doesn't get enough play and it doesn't get enough attention? This stuff, I mean, your brain, your science tied to your spirituality. Tell me a little bit about what your plan is and like what your personal mission is outside of like a 10, 20-year goal.
Yeah, the sort of lifetime really goal now is to build out this Fearvana universe, which I'm calling now Fearvana, the birthplace of boundless bliss. Okay. It's the access point to live a life of boundless bliss. And boundless bliss doesn't mean that there's not sadness and pain and anxiety. that's the again, sort of misconception of the understanding of happiness. We often think happiness is the elimination of sadness, but it's not. Happiness is being able to find the gift in sadness. And boundless bliss means being able to find the gift in everything. So there's bliss in pain, there's bliss in anxiety, there's bliss in guilt, there's bliss in stress, there's bliss in fear, there's bliss in everything. And Fearvana, the universe I want to create, is to help people find that bliss through all of these collective experiences in the human condition. And there's really three avenues, three main things that the Fearvana world will be doing: help people find their worthy struggle, live their worthy struggle, and fall in love with the journey. So find, live, and love your worthy struggle. Your worthy struggle is your path. It's your mission. It's your purpose. I call it your worthy struggle. I hate that term, follow your passion. It implies, and you know, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who've said that, I know, but there's also a lot of people who sort of say, follow your passion. And like, I was just speaking to this kid the other day. I did a talk on navigating adversity. And this kid came up to me and was like, you know, after the talk, because he had heard me talk about how suffering and struggle can be a good thing. He was like, you know, I'd always heard this follow your passion, but as I was doing it, I realized it'd be hard. I'm like, yeah, of course it'll be hard, you know, but there's this misconception that if I follow my passion, it'll be sort of sunshine and rainbows, and it never will be. But that's not a bad thing. Like, struggle is a beautiful part of the human condition. It's a necessary part of the human condition, and to evolve into our greater self. So that's why I call it, what is your worthy struggle? And but you know, so the real question is not which passion do I want to follow. It's which struggle am I willing to endure. So like, you could work a job you hate for the rest of your life, or you can quit a job to start a business. Either one, you're going to struggle in both, right? Like, you're going to struggle with working a job you hate, or you're going to struggle immensely to build a business, as you know, as we both know. So which struggle are you willing to endure? That question is an invaluable question to ask yourself, is which struggle am I willing to endure? So with the Fearvana universe, that we want to do is help people do those three things: find, live, and love your worthy struggle, and create a whole ecosystem under that. So Fearvana Academy, Fearvana Fitness, Fearvana Festivals, Fearvana Retreats. And while I'm doing this on a personal mission of mine, is to run across every country in the world. That gives me the self-fulfillment of like pushing my body and mind to limits that I love. It gives me the self-fulfillment again of traveling and exploring human culture, experiencing the human condition and all kinds of wide varieties of life, and using that as a vehicle to take Fearvana across the globe, to support causes on the ground that need our work, need our help. Because I also have a Fearvana Foundation, the 501c3 arm of Fearvana. So helping people, you know, on the ground. So for example, in October, I'm running across Liberia, and we want to help build the first sustainable school in Liberia, in post-war Liberia. The guy working with is helped rescue 20,000 child soldiers during the war, you know, like an amazing human being. So using this run across the world as an avenue to help people create that life of boundless bliss, to help causes on the ground that need it. And one of the big missions of this run also is to break down these barriers of otherness that is so prevalent in the world today. And ultimately, that's the root of all conflict. You know, we're living in a world that's so divisive right now between America, even it's happening in India, in Europe. We're seeing so much of this, you know, shedding otherness, like creating more otherness. Let's put that person as an other. And by doing that, that's really what causes so much conflict. And but through this run, I want to show that whether we're from Liberia, India, South America, Europe, wherever, we're part of the same human family. You know, as I'm sure you can relate with your tribe, we all go through the same fears, the same struggles, the same passions, the same purpose, you know, like in a higher level. I mean, of course, we have our own versions of expressing that, but ultimately they're very similar, and we're part of the same human family. And really hoping to, again, I've seen sort of the best and worst of humanity in my life, externally and within myself, to be honest. So really now using this as a vehicle to bring out more of the best through the entire world of Fearvana and through my global runs.
Amazing, man. That is, there's a lot going on there, and
It's yeah.
to unpackage it. Um, so we kind of the gist. If you had to break down your worthy struggle and your mission and what you were put here to do,
Yeah.
in one word, what would it be?
In one word, bliss.
Bliss.
To
And
create bliss for others.
and
Yeah.
bliss is, so Earl Nightingale said success is I guess the constant progression towards an ideal goal. So it could be to
Mm.
buy the best coffee mug in the world or whatever it is.
Mm.
It's defined by you. It's not defined by your car or your people on social
Hmm.
media. And you're really quick, go back to why this is, and does it have to do with, in the book you said that you shouldn't be here, and that caused all of your downfalls and your pain. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. And now, is that your, like, your jet stream?
It, now at the point that I'm at, it like initially it was a lot more prevalent in my life. Now there's definitely a little bit more of a future focus as opposed to sort of the survivor's guilt being a core driver. I'm not saying it doesn't show up. It definitely does. As I said, I'll have moments where I watch war movies. I have there's a YouTube video of my friend that died in the war that somebody had created. That one is a little, sometimes obviously a whole different level of intensity. But sometimes I'll use that, especially when I'm in a moment of, um, sometimes again, in that moment of pain, like, or in that moment of, oh man, everything's going to fall apart. Because I mean, I'm trying to run across the world while building a business empire. Both of these things individually are like 24-hour jobs, and doing both there's definitely moments of just absolute overwhelming exhaustion, man. Like just wherever. And then I'm like, I can never do all of this. I just don't want to do anything. I want to go curl up in a cave and sleep, So sometimes you need the rest. There's no doubt about that. But other times it's like, okay, let's be with this. And by delving deeper into that pain of watching, it drives me to say, okay, look, this is my responsibility now. I've been gifted this life. It's not on me to waste it. Not only did I lose a friend in the war, but I actually heard this. I only learned this 10 years after the war in my 10-year reunion with some of my Iraq buddies. My staff sergeant, who was my senior sergeant in my squad, told me that our vehicle drove over an active IED, which is an improvised explosive device. And for whatever reason, it didn't explode. I didn't know this when I was in the war. So I'm not like this. I just heard this from my staff sergeant who told me that our squad. So it was just kind of crazy to think about that. I don't know what that means or or whatever you want to call it in terms of God or spirituality. But what I do know is that even whether that in that context of that and or my friend that went to the war and died, and I believe it should have been me that gone there and should have died instead of him, that I am now alive. Like I'm blessed with that. And in some ways I feel like I shouldn't be. So now it's not on me to waste this. It's a responsibility. It's not just and there's obviously a gift and a burden to that responsibility. The gift is you get to do all these things and get to make this impact. It gives me purpose. The burden is it's freaking hard, man. That's just, there will always be a level. I was just having this conversation with my mom here in India. There will always be a level of discontentment, of anxiety, of fear in my life. And I'm okay with that at this point. I know that there will be many days till the day I die where I wake up with anxiety, with fear, and the point is I've made that choice now to embrace that lifestyle. You don't have to. It's not for everybody. Like my mom says, I have no desire to do these things you're doing. And I'm like, that's cool. That's your path. You don't have to go run across the world or try to build what I'm building. It could be, I want to build something small to take care of my family. That's awesome. That's your path. This is the path I've chosen, and this is the struggle I'm willing to endure. And I know it's going to have like a lot more physical, mental, and spiritual suffering on the way. Running across countries, it's going to be painful.
I can't even imagine. But like you said, you've broken it down into, it's about perspective. It's about, I guess you're playing the game too. Your mind is playing one game, and most people let the mind play the 100% game. And now you're playing the game. So you're using words like responsibility and duty and mission, and you're putting it bigger than yourself. So you're just, I guess, a warrior and a soldier of what the ideals that you've given yourself and your mission, and you're kind of put your North Star there, and you and your life here is dedicated to struggle and find the beauty in the struggle, which I feel you, man. I 100%, I go through the same thing. I take it back and I said, man, I really have a responsibility. My goal is to spread this entrepreneurship to,
Love it, man.
I guess, the rungs of society that it doesn't get to. So it's always,
Yeah.
I view what I'm doing as like Occupy Wall Street. It's always the Stanford guy, the Harvard guy, the guy with the big business telling us all how to do it. And we're all just like, wow, yeah, man, we can get there one day. And I'm trying to bring it to Hustle Island, which is,
Dude, I love that, man.
It's like, I feel stranded. None of my friends do this. None of my family understands it. Nobody understands it. They all think it's, I guess, for nothing, and it's for money or whatever it is, but it's not. And I feel stranded all the time. I always say we zig when the rest of the world zags. So I'm trying to just give the tools to the people that, you know, I have 70,000 people in the community since January, and
that's
every
amazing,
single
man.
person I talk to, it's the same shit. They want to do something. They don't know particularly what it is, but they want to do something. They want out of their current situation, and they just don't have the support and the empowerment to get out. And what would you say to somebody who is in their job? And I'm going to just preface it, which we kind of touched on it before, which is don't jump out the window if you have a family. I mean,
you got to be present to that.
I take it to the extreme. And I have a quote from your book I want to bring up really quick, because this explained me and my situation to a T. And I'm going to explain. Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go.
Yep.
So I want you to speak to that quote.
Yep.
And B, I want you to kind of relate all this that we're talking about to the person they don't necessarily have a mission like you have or I have. They haven't had the decade to process it and think about it. Because when I started, I just couldn't get a job. I mean, that's why I started. I didn't have fucking save the world mentality. How to speak to that person? Speak to me at 21 years old. That just like I wanted to do something. I was fearful of everything though.
Yeah. Especially when you're younger and that 20 years old, get out there and do something and take those risks. Fall. Like, this is another thing, is we don't have patience. We're looking for instant wins. This is where you got to be very careful about the stimuli you have coming into your world. Like, we live in a world that feeds so many negative messages. Here's the easy way out. I mean, I go into the store and you'll see these these exercise machines that say work out 14 minutes a day and you'll look like the supermodel. I can freaking guarantee you that's not. I've worked my ass off for my physique, man. Like, right. and I, it's the diet, it's relentless exercise, and it's still not where where ideally where I wanted to be, but it's a relentless process of hard work. So one is that playing the long game, like you're in it for the long game, focus on the process, focus on the progress over the perfection. So the world is going to feed you. It's easy to get anybody who's feeding effortless, easy, that's a straight up lie. It's just bullshit. It's never going to fly. And the more you cultivate that idea, the more you're setting yourself up for failure. Wins are going to happen. Celebrate the little wins, but move on once you celebrate the wins. So, in the context of the guy who's got a family, yes, you want to pause. Don't leap right out if you got to take care of your family. That might be bad advice, but when you're ready to do it, then burn your boats. Burn your boats is a philosophy I firmly believe in. Once you're ready, take that leap and give everything if you have to it. Like, I don't like the idea of work-life balance. Like, my work and my life are coexist. I talk about my life and my work, as you can see. I talk about my work and my life with my family all the time. It's so much a part of me. So burn your boats and go all in when you're ready to go all in. And if you're that young kid, take those risks, man. If you don't know what it is yet, figure it out. I didn't know this overnight either. There's some kids who've I have friend who, she's pretty young. She's about to be a grandmaster in chess, came from a village in India, awesome story, no money, and how she grew and about to be a grandmaster. Chess was her path. She figured it out at a young age. She embraced it, walked it. Good for her. If you don't know it yet, it's cool. I'm 33 years old, about to turn 34. I've really kind of figured it out in the last 2 years and gotten the clarity that I have now. But I bounced around from first doing a lot of drugs and joining the Marines. When I joined the Marines, I wanted to go career in the Marines. At one point that was my path. It changed. It evolved. Do I have any regrets? Absolutely not. The Marines is so much a part of who I am. I learned a ton from it. So especially if you're young, man, just get out there and do something. Take references from people who are doing what it seems like you want to do. So if let's say you hear my story and you think, oh, I want to run across the world, then go start training for some crazy run. If you think, okay, I don't want to go suffer in running, cool. then that's not your thing. So look for people who are living a kind of lifestyle that you think you'd want. So you're looking for references, because this is how you kind of, what I call finding your path to Fearvana. The brain is always operating from references. So you look for references that connect with you, that resonate with you, and then take the step. And then as you take the step, you're going to figure it out. Is this my path? And you're taking the step acknowledging that it's not going to be easy, no matter what. This is, again, the big reason why people fail is they'll take a step thinking that if I start my business, if I follow my passion, it'll be easy and joyful. And then they soon realize it's not. And they're like, oh shit, what happened? I was working with this other kid who was working this awesome job. It was like a kick-ass job in New York and Wall Street, like making lots of money, but hated it, right? Soon he realized that if he wanted to start his business, but again, he was lost. He thought, if I have my own business, the idea of entrepreneurship is sexy, right? Like freedom, travel the world. You'll see all these people sitting on the beach. That's what my business will be like. And he soon realized that's not entirely it, right? Like it's a lot of work. So he realized, and we were talking, and at one point in the conversation, he said to me something which I loved, really resonates with the idea. He said, so you mean there's no such thing as a stress-free life? Because he realized whichever path he chooses, there'll be stress. And I said, no, there's not, but that's not a bad thing. The question is, which stress are you willing to choose? Which struggle are you willing to endure? So accepting that is there. Another thing he said, is I want to touch on. He said, so if life is just struggle and suffering, then what's the kind of point? I said, it's not just that. Don't get me wrong. There's play, as I'm sure you can relate to. There's fun moments. But the reality is also is that struggle itself is not a bad thing. It's that struggle can be fun. Like I love going for long distance runs. I love working on my business. Sometimes, yes, I hate it and I go through painful moments, but there's beauty in all of it. I actually have just recently, again, in the concept, since I've written my book, this new concept I've kind of come up with this that I call the paradox of singular duality. And the idea is in life, there are all these dualities. There's stress and recovery. There's contentment and discontentment. There's our demons and our divinity. There's life and death, darkness and light, being and doing. And ego and humility is another big, powerful duality. And with what happens is we often demonize one side of a duality, like ego is bad, ego is the enemy. No, it's not. If you want to be great, you have to believe you're great. I can confidently say that I'm great at certain things and I'm not at others. And, and even the things I am great at, I'm humble enough to know that I'm always learning and always got more to learn. So embracing the dualities of life, of the entire spectrum of the experiences, like stress has to be balanced with recovery. They all coexist as one. And when you sort of make the dualities singular as one, you rise into the next stage of your spiritual evolution and ultimately into your personal and financial evolution as well. So, I know I kind of went on all over there, but but really the idea is, again, taking that action, gaining the awareness, taking new action. And especially if you're young, man, you got time. Take those risks. I'm 33. It took me 32, 31 years to figure out my path, and I have zero regrets about it, man. Like I've lived quite a journey. If you've already figured out and you're young and you know exactly what you want, you know your struggle, good for you. Like that's awesome. There's people younger than me doing great things already because they figured out their path. That's awesome, great. But if you haven't, don't beat yourself up.
Well, how do you take the duality and make it singular?
So the idea is every contrasting duality serves the other. So for example, ego and humility. Let's talk about that one, right? Because ego is so demonized. I can believe I'm great. Like athletes are a great example of unifying that duality. You see like people like Michael Jordan, they'll be like, I'm the greatest in the world. Muhammad Ali, I'm the best in the world. I'm the greatest in the world. There's that ego about it, but there's the humility to know I'm a relentless learner. So the ego and the humility serve each other. My ego about my own greatness. So as a public speaker, I can confidently say I'm a damn good public speaker, but I'm humble enough to know that I have plenty of room to grow. So my ego serves my humility, and my humility can serve my own ego. Because I believe I have room to grow, I also know that that's what's going to make me greater and continue to make me greater. So they can serve in contentment and discontentment. For example, as an entrepreneur, that's a duality you're going to embrace. You will always be, you're going to have to learn to be content with discontentment. In my life, as I said, till the day I die, I know I will always have a level of discontentment in me because I will always want more, want to create more, want to be more, want to give more. So I'm content with that discontentment. They both coexist within me. I have the discontentment, I will always have it, and I'm content with that. Same thing with your demons and your divinity, for example. The divinity is our greatest moment, but my demons, my addictive personality is now driving me to run across the world, to do these things that I'm doing. My demons have become my ally. Now I'm delving deeper into my demons. Like I said, watching war movies, knowing they make me cry. They tear me up when I do, but that's allowing me to embrace my demons and allowing them to be an access point for my divinity. And how do they coexist again? When I push my divinity, like when I go, let's say running 20, 30 miles, by the end point, that's me pushing what I believe. See, I believe in when I say divinity, I believe that God, our greatness is within each of us. We all have a divinity that allows us to rise above what we believe ourselves to be. And the greatness of the human potential is God expressed through man, expressed through human beings. That's what I believe, again, of the nature of our divinity. And like there's, again, war movie, for example, Hacksaw Ridge, this guy who single-handedly saved 75 people, pulling them off a cliff. Amazing story. What he did was literally impossible, but he did it because he tapped into his divinity. And what he used to say is, after each person, he would pause and say, please, God, help me get one more. Now, when you're in experiences like that, like in my context, let's say I'm running 20, 30 miles, I'm pushing myself beyond what I think possible. But when you're in that pain of 20 miles in, your demons are rising, man. Like everything within you is rising. This sucks. I hate my life. Fuck this. Why am I doing this? I just want to retreat. Like your demons will fight you, will show up. That's that point when you channel into that demons and you accept their presence, that you'll rise again into that greater divinity to push through. I experience that all the time, like as I'm sure you can relate in the entrepreneurial context, you experience it as well, but you allow these dualities to coexist. And life and death, man, like meditating on death, being present. I think that's the ultimate duality because death is, the end. But like embracing the presence of our own mortality and bringing that into life. Buddhism has a concept where they say meditate on death. So I've been fortunate that I've been very close to my own mortality, not just in the Marines, but I've climbed mountains in the Himalayas. I've been almost killed by a falling rock while glacier caving. I've skied across a polar ice cap, which the year after that a British explorer was killed in minus 40 degrees in winter storms. So I've been very present to my own mortality. And when I forget that, it becomes a problem because so what happens with so many human beings is we live our lives as if we're never going to die, and then we die never having really lived, right? Because we've never embraced the presence of our own death. And that's what I was talking about earlier. The fear of my death will allow me to channel my message, right? So being present to my death and in making my death and my life one, I can strive and be more. Does that make sense?
That was beautiful, man. I love it. I'm really enjoying this, on a personal level. And you're right. The singularity is I'm, compulsive, manic, but that's what drives me to start a business in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that's your obsessive, and you could either be on drugs all day or you could be running to change the world. It's how you challenge it, and one feeds the other. And, your near-death experiences and fuel your life experiences. And a lot of people just go on that flat line. They go in the comfort zone and they never go too far up and they never go too far down.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm out in the street running because I'm like a pressure cooker. I have to go run in the middle of the street like a crazy guy. Some people don't do that. Some people don't have that pressure, but yet they don't get the thrills that I get of something from my head come to light and serve hundreds of thousands of people. That's a gift you get. I believe when you burn the ships, you jump out the window, the pressure is on, and it's almost like I don't know why I think of this, but I think of like a jet ski going under the water. And the farther down you go, the higher up you'll get.
I like that.
Everybody rides a jet ski under the water.
I get what you mean.
The farther down you go, the farther up you go. I believe in that. I believe that's it's almost like the secret to life. And you understand that?
I can
stuff you said. Go ahead.
Yeah. I totally resonate with you, man. That sounds like you and me are very similar in the sense that we'll probably experience more intense lows than most, but at the same time, we'll experience more intense highs, But if that's like just for anybody listening too, like if that's not you, like that's also okay. Like my dad, for example, he's been very successful in every context, but he's not like me. Like he's a very Zen, like he has this level of contentment that's there, like he's now retired. He had a very successful corporate career, made a lot of money, provided us a great life, couldn't ask for better parents, but he doesn't experience the intense lows or the intense highs that I experience. He's like that. And it's in its own way, it's spiritually beautiful. And he's very like, that's him. That's great for him. The thing is it's not worth me trying to be that because now I've just embraced the fact that I won't be that. I will experience these intense lows and I will also experience intense highs, and being okay with that. Like, sounds like you're the same way, right? Like that's who we are. That's who we're going to be. That's okay. And if somebody else listening to this is not, like, the thing is, get that awareness again of who you are, who you want to be, and then channel that and create it, because again, I also don't believe that life is about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself. So I've kind of acknowledged that through my life experience, this is who I've created. And now I can continue creating that and cultivating that into something grander and keep, continue my own evolution. But if I wanted to let something be something different, I could mold it, but you have to really accept that this is who I want to be, this is who I will be, and then continue cultivating and creating that. But like my dad's not at all like me in that context, you know, but he's successful in every other, in every way we define success as well. So it's just about finding, you know, your path and then walking it with that, burning the boats.
Right. And in going back to the words you use, responsibility, mission,
Mm-hmm.
gift, that makes it all real and that makes it all worth it. And again, it's the worthy struggle. I want to go into some more tactical stuff. And I mean, obviously the whole, not the whole reason we're on this talk, but one of the main things that just like a headline was the Dalai Lama. I mean, that's obviously, I don't know if people watching and know how special that is, or maybe I think it's more special. I don't know. I think that's how I preface it. If I say to somebody, oh, I have a friend that did this. Oh yeah, he wrote a book. Yeah, he got endorsed by the Dalai Lama. They're like what?
Yeah.
I want you to speak to two things. One, what's the point where you said I'm going to write a book? And what's that point? How did you figure that out? And then how did you kind of just go fast forward up until the point where you had something tangible?
Yeah. So the decision to write a book. So after I once again got in the Marines and all that, that's when I started getting into outdoor sports and pushing myself, which led me to personal development. Like, again, how do we grow, keep growing, keep evolving? So after I came back from Iraq, I had a corporate job for a year and a half. I actually signed up for the job for the exact day that I knew I would, I knew exactly what day I would quit when I signed up, because that was the day I was going to ski across Greenland a year and a half later. So skied across Greenland, came out, and I was big time into personal development work. So I got into coaching. That was my main business for a long time. And as I got into personal development work, I came across Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup, the Soul author. And he's a beautiful human being. He really helped me in my own evolution of battling some of my PTSD demons and all that. And I asked him once, what would you do differently if you could go back in a career? And he said I would have written my book even sooner. You know, and he told me about all these stories about how this book becomes this thing that's so much more of an extension of you. Like, it goes beyond you can even imagine. Like, I don't even know where my book is all over the world right now, touching somebody's life. You know, he's told me stories about how somebody read Chicken Soup with the Soul and decided not to kill herself. You know, like, that was beautiful. So I was like, okay, this is what I got to do. Put my book out there, turn into this story. And initially, again, like, this is where you get clarity on who you want to be. I thought, okay, let me write a business book because it seemed like that's the quickest way to make money. But that was not me. That's not at all like my main forte, at least not right now. You know, as I evolved, that it's not that I've been successful in business, but that wasn't like really my essence. So that was me trying to cater to something that I wasn't my essence, wasn't who I needed to be. And that soon got subsided. So I realized, okay, fear. Because fear is the number one barrier standing between where we are and where we need to be, you know? But it doesn't have to be a barrier. And I discovered this through all my life. So that's what led to the writing of the book. And then it took me about 3 years because I read must be hundreds and hundreds of books to research. As you've seen in the book, every point is researched, every point is validated. One was definitely some procrastination. Sometimes I used to go like running a marathon just to avoid writing, because running was more within my comfort zone. And this is another thing, again, like embracing, like, what's your worthy struggle? Like, running was a struggle, but it was an easier struggle for me than writing a book. My worthy struggle was the book. I had to be present to that. So, you know, procrastination, some navigating my own demons, because I shared a lot of my own stories in the book, as you saw. So channeling that was a sort of deeply cathartic and spiritual experience. And then editing, rewriting, because it took me so long, I sort of evolved as a person. So as a result, the book changed. I mean, I rewrote, like I said, almost all of it, you know, but again, it finally was something I'm truly proud of, so no regrets. But so yeah, it took me 3 years till finally had that. And then when I had it, you know, I wanted to get the endorsements because I was an unknown. I didn't have a brand. I didn't have anything. Nobody knew the word Fearvana. It was an unknown word, right? So I needed to get it out there in a big way. So I decided in my target that I'm going to get 15 to 20 notable endorsements from people. Started reaching out to people. And at one point I remember thinking it'd be cool if I get the Dalai Lama, but I was like, nah, there's no way. Who am I? Like, I don't have I'm not famous. Why would the Dalai Lama endorse my book? And just kind of shut that thought down. And then later on I was like, why not try? What's the worst that could happen? So what I did to make that happen was I first reached out to his office, the email in his office, which ultimately got me nowhere. I didn't hear back. So I did a ton of research and I found one name and one email. So it was a physical person, so I could reach out to him. I shot a personal video for the Dalai Lama, like explaining my life story, what I want to do with Fearvana. 100% of the profits are going to charity, what the mission is for Fearvana beyond just the book. Shot a video. I reached out to this one person. He connected me to 2 other people. So 3 people later, finally connected to one, the one right monk in the office there of His Holiness. And he said to me, we got your stuff. We'll review it. We'll check it out. And over a period of 4 to 5 months, I built a relationship with him, went through all those thoughts of self-doubt. They probably hate my book. Why haven't they given me an endorsement yet? It's never going to happen. All that stuff. So like the thing, it's okay for the stuff to show up, but you don't have to listen to it, right? But I continued persisting. I built a relationship with them. And after about 4 to 5 months, this monk wrote me saying, considering everything you've been through and your genuine desire to serve, I'll press your case. And when he said that, like a few weeks later, I got this beautiful letter in the mail with his Holiness' seal and signature. And I didn't ask for a forward. In my ask, it was only a one-liner, like an endorsement, but I ended up getting a forward for the book from the Dalai Lama, which was just an incredible blessing. And also just in terms of marketing, as you can imagine, a game changer for the book. I've been in events where, I'm an unknown right now or whatever, an unknown relatively, or at least earlier on. Now it's starting to grow, but I would tell about the book. They'd be like, oh, it'd be interesting. Can I check it out? And I would share it. And then they'd be like, wait, what? The Dalai Lama is on the front, Suddenly it just changes the entire, and I could not ask for some, like a better, human being, you want to call him that, like just this, the epitome of spiritual, mastery and this tremendously enlightened soul to sort of lend his name and to this concept of Fearvana. And obviously it's been a blessing in terms of sharing that work with more people. And then of course, beyond him, I got, like I said, Seth Godin, Marcy Shimoff, Marshall Goldsmith, Jack Canfield. So a lot of noteworthy endorsements from people who have touched my life and who are just tremendous human beings as well.
I mean, that's spectacular. Going back, and because I always listen to interviews, and I'm like, how can you do that? How did you know Jack Canfield?
So Jack, I had done a lot of work with because when I was again struggling with some of my demons, I went through some of his seminars and stuff, and we really connected there. So I've done his Breakthrough to Success, his Train the Trainer program, and he was really instrumental for me in many ways. So we really connected a lot during his seminars. And then, so when I got closer to writing the book, like I felt pretty confident he would, and he did. He wrote me a beautiful endorsement saying that like Fearvana is one of the must-read books, that kind of thing, something like that. Yeah. So
as far as authors, he's the Dalai Lama of authors.
So, exactly. Chicken soup with the soul, right? So
how did you? You went from an unknown person with all these struggles, and how did you get? Because just the fact that if you vanish off this earth right now, the fact that you wrote your first book and got all those endorsements, is supremely encouraging. And like that's, to people in my world, like that's Mount Rushmore. Like you did it, and now you're going to the next step, which is obviously your responsibility. But how did you do that? How did you give yourself the courage to say, I'm more than what I am? I could go, because most people that are in my group won't even email me. They're scared to email me. Never mind the Dalai Lama, Seth Godin, Jack Canfield. How did you build that? Because obviously you weren't. That wasn't you on day one. How did you give yourself that courage to even to send a letter is very hard and
oh, without doubt, man. Like I said, initially I just thought it wouldn't happen. There's no way, So acknowledging that and even those thoughts still show up, man. Like when I reached out, let's say to pitch a podcast host, I want to eventually get on like Tim Ferriss's podcast or something, Like it's like, that'll never happen. That stuff still shows up even though I've gotten all these things that I've gotten. So really the key is allowing yourself to recognize that the thoughts that you have are not you. You don't have to let those thoughts control you. But the problem is we let them become us, right? Like that becomes our self-identity, that I cannot reach this. It's not I cannot, like my brain's a crazy maniac, but I am something more. My message is something more. So it's a belief in your message. I have a firm conviction and belief in Fearvana. I can say with 100% confidence that my book will touch people's lives, And one, I work my ass off for it, but I firmly believe in the message. I firmly believe in the work I put into it. So that obviously helps. So believing in what you're doing, in the impact you want, that it can serve the people you want to serve. And that'll give you some courage to push through, but allowing yourself to recognize that those thoughts are not going to go away. As I said, like when I reached out to the Dalai Lama, I had those thoughts the whole time I was building this relationship with this monk, that they're going to hate the book. They're not going to do it. There's no way it's going to happen. All that kind of stuff. It just shows up. It still shows up, and being present to those thoughts and saying that, and then taking one small leap, like even with getting Seth Godin was actually the first endorsement I got, which was amazing, you know, and I shot a personal video for him. We built it, connected with him, and he's a tremendously beautiful human being. I mean, he responds to, you know, my email, like just the fact that they're reaching out, like finding that human connection between a person, like ultimately everybody's also just a human being. That's another thing. Sort of tie in is like, we idolize everybody, right? But like they're a human being no different than you. And more often than not, if you express yourself through vulnerability, authenticity, it resonates. So coming from and tying into that point of vulnerability and authenticity is owning your own story. Like I've talked to a lot of people who are, the reason they're scared of reaching out or doing these kind of things is because they don't own their own story. Like they're struggling with the who am I? Like I struggled. I wouldn't be able to share a lot of things I shared with you now a few years ago about my survivor's guilt, about my demons with alcohol, about all that kind of stuff. But that's a part of who I am. Do some people, I've never had somebody negatively judge me. Usually people appreciate the authenticity and vulnerability, but will that happen? Probably eventually. I don't really care. You know, I'm going to be real. I've broken my sobriety a ton since I made the decision to go sober, but I'm very honest about like who I am and what I am for the world. And I think so I own that story, you know, because one of my friends actually, who I met at a Jack Canfield seminar, helped me say that your story is not about you. It's about the people you can serve. Because I always felt guilty sharing it, because in every category I put myself in, runner, entrepreneur, veteran, there's someone who's better than me. There's a better runner, there's better entrepreneurs, there's better authors, there's whatever better means in terms of successful and how, you know, financial, whatever way. There's veterans who have done a hell of a lot more than me, who've been, you know, real heroes. So who the hell am I? That I can't share my story because there's a, you know, it's not worthy. But my veteran buddy helped me, my buddy from the Jack Canfield training helped me recognize that it's not about me, and my story is not about me, and it can serve. So coming from that place of service helps you rise above your own stuff. And then you have to take action, man. Take a small step. Eventually, even if you reach 100 people, if you get one yes, leverage, like take that in, soak that in, celebrate the victory, let that fuel you. Let that fuel you into the next victory, which actually also brings up a point about confidence, which is another big lie in the personal development world. You'll often hear say, well, be confident, you know, like you just be like, do these things and be confident. But you can't be confident about something you've never done before. How can you be confident? You've never done it, you know? So the key here is not confidence, but commitment. This is like, it's sort of a cycle of how confidence works. You make a commitment, you exercise courage because you're doing something that's scary. You develop capabilities, and then through those capabilities, you get confidence. So it's commitment, courage, capabilities, confidence. And then you leverage that confidence as fuel to make the next commitment. So I'm not confident about building a business empire. I have no clue how to hire people, how to build a team. I've never done it. I'm not at all confident. But I have confidence fuel from the previous things that I've done and all the things I've done in my life to make a commitment to the venture. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. And
yeah,
that I believe confidence is the number one key to everything, and belief. Belief is a step above confidence. And and like you said, it's hard to do if you don't believe it. Like if your message is not authentic, you're going to listen to the demon. You're going to say, I am an imposter. I'm not going to say that.
Exactly.
So how did you do the first video? I mean, I really want to break it down to like that, because that's where it is. And the guy on the internet, Jordan Peterson, he's a doctor or something, but he has a video of saying like every master was once a fool. Like nobody starts off like
Absolutely.
Everybody breaks their knees when they first drive a bike. It's human nature. How did you do that first video, and how did you propel yourself? Like what story did you tell yourself to overtake your demons, to actually do it, and actually push send?
You know, the video, it technically wasn't fancy. I didn't have a nice camera. It doesn't need to be, you know, like I was literally standing in front of actually that closet right there next to me, this brown closet, no lighting, just a shitty kind of camera. Hell, use your phone, you know, get a little tripod on Amazon for less than $10 and do a video. That's a great way. Somebody listening, reach out to you, man. Like reach out to me, help shoot a video for us. Like, you know, that's a great way to connect, because I realize that in this day and age, we're so much communication, like overwhelmed with Facebook and this, that, and everything. Like true human connection is actually being lost, not being improved, you know? So video is a way to stand out. Like I could say the exact same words in email, but in video, it's a different beast, because now they're seeing you, they're seeing your reality. And that comes back to, again, the owning your story. If you own who you are, you believe in your message, it comes through. I mean, I firmly believe I would not have, the Dalai Lama is like the Dalai Lama, man. He doesn't just be endorsing books randomly, right? Like he senses something in people. He's beyond you know, and so, and I'm not saying this about me. The point is that the only reason I believe I got it is because I was truly coming from a place of service. I was able to own all my story, my demons. Like I wasn't embarrassed to tell the Dalai Lama that I've struggled with alcohol and drugs. You know, like one might be, right? Like, oh, I don't want him to think bad about me. You know what I mean? Like that could come up. But the thing is, that's a part of me now, man. Like, and if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But that is part of me. And by owning my story, I come from a different place. It shows up differently. And then it also is, again, coming from that place of service. So shooting the video, technically, it doesn't need to be fancy, but it's a great way to connect with human beings, the people you admire. Hell, man, you don't even have to have an ask. Shoot a video for somebody just saying, thank you for being you. I read your book and it changed my life. Thank you. One great thing you need to recognize, too, is that everybody wants to be acknowledged. Everybody wants to be validated. I've heard this from Oprah herself, actually. A friend of mine is doing this great project where he collects life lessons, and a mutual friend met Oprah. Oprah's number one lesson in life was that everybody wants to be validated. And she's interviewed people like everybody. I mean, she was talking about how even Beyonce, after a Beyonce concert, was like, did I do okay? You know, and she's Beyonce. She knows how to perform, right? But she was like, did I do okay? And to Oprah. So Oprah recognized that every single human being wants to be validated. Everybody wants to be acknowledged. I don't care how big they are. If you tell them thank you, it means something. I mean, for most, there might be some scummy human beings on earth, you know, but most people like that. Most people like it makes a difference to them. If you're a good human being, you want to know your work is making a difference. Like I love reading my Amazon reviews of Fearvana. I love the messages I get from people who write to me saying like, your book is like my Bible. It makes me feel good that it's making an impact. And it helps me continue to take action when I'm struggling. I'm like, okay, look, the work is making a difference. It's on me to get out there again, you know? So it doesn't need to be fancy. It's just taking that first step, like, and not expecting the demons and the fear and the struggle to go away. Like there's no other hack to it. It's, you know, it's going to be scary. It always will be. Cool. You know, shoot a video. Was I perfect on video first time I did it? No. Today you turn on a camera, you can see right now, you turn on a camera, I can ramble on about anything in my topic, you know, because I've developed a confidence and a comfort on camera. And that didn't happen overnight. Anything that you want to do. I wasn't a long distance runner. I used to hate long distance running, only 100 meters back in school. This was before my drug days. And then I went to drugs and I wasn't at all a fit person, but you'd work one step at a time, you know? So take a step though. You're going to learn more in taking the step than I can provide insight to anybody listening. I can provide awareness, but if you don't do anything with this, it's useless. Like a fundamental behavior principle that I operate from is that learning equals behavior change. So if you learn something from me, but it doesn't change your behavior, you haven't learned anything, you know? So if you learn something from you and you haven't changed your behavior, then you haven't learned anything. Take action. Take one small action. Shoot a video for somebody. Do whatever your goal is in your business. Like if it's getting an endorsement for a book, shoot a video for that person. If they say no, cool. Yes, I got a lot of great endorsements, but I got a lot of no's, man. Like I reached out to people and they said no, you know, but was it worth it to still reach out? Obviously, right? Like with the amount of yeses I got, like it was a game changer for me, for my brand, for my book, for the impact, everything.
Right. But getting the no's also got you better, you know, like
exactly
100 videos and getting 100 no's is going to make you 100 times better than you
exactly were. What am I doing? And then that ties back into being like allowing yourself to be aware about the action. Like, what am I doing wrong? What went wrong about this? Then you can process and analyze, you know. And sometimes it could be nothing. Sometimes you're like, I mean, reach out to busy people. Some people were very sweet about it. There were people actually who were very big in the personal development industry. I don't want to name names, but we're not so friendly about it. Not as a little more curt than I would expect. But most people were like, who said no? Like some people said no, and they're like, you know, love your message, love your story, thank you, but we're unfortunately we're really, which I understand. These are busy people. Like I don't have any beef with them about that. You know, that's totally cool. But I would never get a no if I didn't reach out. So if you don't reach out, you're exactly where you started. Like here's the thing with the Dalai Lama again. I could have not reached out, but by reaching out, if they said no, I would be exactly where I was anyway. It doesn't change anything by reaching out, you know? I'm without a quote from the Dalai Lama. If they said no, I'm still without a quote. If they said yes, which they did, then I got one. Like, so what's the harm? You know, otherwise it doesn't change anything. And then, you're still exactly where you are.
And you even start seeing yourself as a guy who made a video for Dalai Lama. Like you see yourself as more confident than you did yesterday.
Absolutely. And then that confidence becomes commitment fuel for the next win, right?
I love it, man. I love it. I love this is, I think, I personally, and I think my industry need more talks like this and less talks like, oh man, I fucking split tested a landing page and the green button works better. And that's the focus, and the focus really should be internal. And here's something that I tell people, and I'm going to start making a bigger stink about it. And like if you're, let's say you want to start a business and you're doing under $10,000 a month or something, it's not a tactical issue. you don't need to learn Facebook ads. You need to learn yourself, because I got $10,000 of shit right behind me that you can call me and I'll split the money with you. Just sell it. I don't want it anymore. Just go use eBay and sell stuff and learn how to transact, learn how to copyright, learn how to do all this.
Yeah.
You don't need the tactical stuff. You don't need a hack. You don't need to listen to 700 podcasts about email automation. You need to develop your own, find, live, love, worthy struggle. You need to find what's keeping you back, identify it, label it, say, hey, nice to meet you, but I'm not going to let you run me anymore. And that's my spiel, man. And
love it, brother.
That's my Fearvana spiel is like, fucking deal with what you have to deal with. Get the wheels going. Yep. Half the people I talk to that don't have anything, have nothing to sell on eBay. They have no way of, they want money, but you're not doing anything. You go sell your Michael Jordan sneaker. It's simple.
Yeah.
So let's end this. I got to get back to work and deal with my struggles for the day. I got 700 things to do.
I feel you, brother.
Failing them at all of them. Just give one quick message to the 99% of entrepreneurs out there that still have the self-doubt takes over everything, and just give a message of how to get that, how to put the shoes near the door, how to get that, how to step out the door.
Number one skill you can develop in life, for your happiness, for your business success, develop a positive relationship with struggle, with adversity, with suffering. Learn to fall in love with that experience, and you do it by experiencing it. That won't happen from listening to my words or your words. That will happen by going out there and suffering in whatever context. Exercise is a great tool to practice it. In fact, there's a great TED Talk where a guy says if they could turn the effects of exercise into a pill, it'd be the biggest selling pill of all time, like way better than any other pill on the market, which I firmly have visibly experienced. It saved my life. So exercise is a great way to develop that positive relationship with suffering, because you can go out there and suffer. Almost anybody can do it, and you go suffer and learn to suffer well, man. Like one of the taglines we're creating for our shirts is "Suffer well." So
all I was thinking about was embrace the struggle on like a poster.
Yeah. Yep. We actually, in the Marines, we always used to say embrace the suck, because you're in the Marines, there's a lot of sucky moments. So a big thing was just embrace the suck, man. It ain't going to go away. You're in war for 7 months, whether you like it or not. Once you're out there, embrace the suck.
All right. Well, everybody go to get Fearvana, the book, on Amazon. And another thing, I'd encourage you, make a video, send it to me if I can help you. Make a video, send it to Akshay. If he can help you, just do it. Just do something. I implore you. There's a huge world out there. Use your adversity. Make it a jet stream. Thank you very much, man. I really, really appreciate your time, and I really am getting
brother.
Enjoy knowing you, and I enjoyed this talk far more than you could imagine.
Oh, likewise, man. You did a fantastic job. This was an amazing interview, and I'm not just saying that to patronize you. Like genuinely, one of my favorites, and I really do mean that. Like it was a conversation, it was a great flow. So, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, my friend. I'm sure we'll be connecting a lot more, obviously.
All right, man. Hey, have a great day. Bye now.